latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
AM 560, The Answer. Chris Crock filling in on Chicago's Morning Answer. Dan is back tomorrow. 312-642-5600 is our number. This is a good column written by Ammon Blair. Ammon is the senior fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. And Ammon, welcome to the show. You wrote this article, "The National Guard has defended our borders before." You're in Texas then, huh, or no?
Yes, sir. I'm in Texas. Thank you for having me.
Where are you at? I'm in Dallas, even though I'm a Chicago born and raised guy. Where are you at?
Okay. Yeah, I actually live in McAllen. I live right on the border.
Oh, wow. McAllen, that's way down there in the RGV, Rio Grande Valley. Very cool. Very cool. So you would be very familiar, not only with your piece you wrote, the National Guard has defended our borders before, and you can see it yourself in person. So what was the impetus for this piece? Is it that Trump is deploying National Guardsmen, whether at the border or in our cities, to buttress our ICE folk and Border Patrol folk, and how it's this has been going on for a long time? Is that kind of the genesis for this?
Yeah, 100%. I wrote an actual large academic research paper in regards to the militia and the National Guard and their purpose, all the way from the founding of our nation. And I did this to dispel any myths on how we can actually utilize the National Guard. We're going to have to continue to do so, given everything that you're seeing in L.A., all the riots, all the attacks on law enforcement. Unfortunately, we're going to have to utilize our National Guard to protect our law enforcement. So there are cries from those on the left and even some on the right that the National Guard are being misused or that they're legally not allowed to do so. And so I wrote that piece to show that, hey, we sent over 100,000 National Guard at our border when Poncho Villa was coming in and invading into the U.S. And so this is not unprecedented.
So that was with Woodrow Wilson, 1916. So we're looking at 109 years ago. The National Guard was called in to the southern border. 110,000 people, National Guardsmen. And Trump has pulled in so far, what, 20,000?
Yeah, not even close to the numbers that were pulled in. And the threats today are much greater. I mean, not only do you have Mexican cartels that have created a pipeline into every one of our communities, but because of that, every one of our adversaries has now created a relationship with the cartels to get access to us, whether that's going to be the CCP or Iran and their proxies, you name it. And so the threats we face today are much greater, and now they're colluding with those on the streets, whether that's going to be Antifa or the anarchists and communists in the streets attacking our law enforcement.
Ammon, you also write about President Dwight D. Eisenhower with using the National Guard. Tell me about that, and also, are there any other examples in our history of our country with mass amounts of National Guardsmen brought out to protect our sovereignty?
Yeah, sure. So during that time period, look, the Department of the War Department was actually in charge of the border, and we had roughly around 20,000 Army soldiers along the border, and that still was not enough. And so that's why he had to call in the National Guard to come in, and it was a precursor to World War I. So they were able to utilize that to not only secure the border, but actually prepare themselves for World War I. Fast forward to World War II. During that time period, actually the state guards or the state defense forces were actually larger than the National Guard. So in Texas, our state defense force, now called the Texas State Guard, was actually larger than the National Guard, and that was to protect Texas from the threats of invasion during World War II.
Interesting.
And if you Yeah, if you look at the only organization now that is kind of set up in the same way to protect their own state is actually Florida. Florida reestablished their state guard, and they did so outside of the purview of the Florida Military Department. So that way, the governor has direct control, kind of like how President Trump has direct control over SOCOM.
Mm-hmm.
Same concept. So there's hardly any bureaucracy. And then they created special mission units in Florida. One specifically, the special mission unit there is all former SOCOM members, whether that's Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Rangers, MARSOC, wow. You name it. And so Florida has taken that model from World War II and has now applied it into their own state.
But it's bad now because Orange Man is the president. If it was former President Hussein Obama or Biden, no problem. No problem, right? Put them in cages, deport millions of them, no problem. All right, now, the guardsmen right now that are protecting our border and working with, for example, in Florida, you mentioned at Alligator Alcatraz, guardsmen have been deputized, if you will, to do hearings. They're doing the hearings for the illegals instead of immigration judges, right?
Yeah. Yes. So they are now force multipliers to do immigration hearings. And that's the whole reason why I laid out that article to show the capabilities and the capacities of the National Guard that have completely been underutilized. And really the only people that are utilizing them now to their full capacity is Florida. Even Texas, we're far behind what Florida's doing. Interesting.
Okay, so are the guardsmen, particularly the ones working with our HSI, ICE, Border Patrol, are they allowed to fire shots? And are they allowed to enforce the laws? And, like, for example, also in L.A., what can they do and what can't they do?
Yeah, they're force multipliers with the law enforcement, so they can go. And many people say that due to posse comitatus laws, they're not allowed to do law enforcement. But if you look back, the posse comitatus laws were built to protect southern states and from trying to continue on their slavery. And so now today they're trying to utilize that, saying that National Guard cannot help law enforcement when it comes to detaining those that are attacking them, to also going with whether that's simulation rounds or actually once firing upon them as well. And so that's again why I wrote that article, to show that, hey, the National Guard 100% can assist law enforcement in these riots, can assist at the border, can assist in immigration enforcement. They are 100% a force multiplier, and the militia that was created in the very beginning of this nation.
How is it helping overall the guardsmen being deployed, working with our ICE and Border Patrol? So how is it helping, and how big of a deal is it making?
Yeah, so on the border, from California to El Paso, U.S. Northcom has now taken that over from the Department of the Interior. And so U.S. Northcom is on their way to obtain a 100% operational control of that and seal the border. However, it's much more difficult in Texas, since Texas's border is about 95% private property. And so he's going to have to rely a lot more on state, local, and the Texas National Guard to do that here. Now, in the interior, like in L.A., they're there to block and protect the law enforcement so that the law enforcement can actually do their job and not have to try to protect themselves from our own citizens while doing their job. So that's what they're there for. And then in Florida, what they're utilized for is transportation. So that way there's not so much cost and in terms of time, personnel, and efforts on local law enforcement and the state law enforcement conducting immigration enforcement in Florida. They created a transportation program with the Florida National Guard and State Guard to transport illegal aliens from the time from the jails all the way to the detention centers.
Interesting.
And so, so not just are they utilized to be immigration judges in Florida, but they're also utilized for protection and then transportation. So it's a whole of government approach in terms of immigration enforcement that the National Guard have been utilized either by Trump, like in California, or by Governor DeSantis in Florida.
Ammon Blair, senior fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and this new column you came out with is the National Peace. Is the National Guard has defended our borders before. One more thing I wanted to ask you about is this cartoon depiction of a Trump supporter by this political cartoonist who works with the Buffalo newspaper and has won Pulitzers in the past, or at least one. It shows a guy with a MAGA hat on, almost drowning and holding up a sign that says "Help," and there's a speech bubble of what he's saying, and above it says "Government is the problem, not the solution." And at the top of the cartoon it reads "Swept away." What was your reaction to this? And how do you think this is going to play out? Do you think this is going to be something huge with this guy and they're going to nail him, or is it going to just pass because, well, he's mocking Trump supporters who are dead or barely came out alive?
Yeah, it's really sad that they're politicizing what's happening here in Texas, and they're making it all about Trump supporters. If you come here to Texas and you go to Central Texas, it is hell on earth. The amount of death and carnage, children dead, and to politicize that, that guy should be 100% probably prosecuted, lose his job for inciting more violence. Look, all the public officials that are inciting violence on ICE right now and our law enforcement should also be held accountable. They are 100% supporting domestic terrorists attacking our law enforcement. However, if nothing happens, to him, the cartoonist, if nothing happens to the public officials, then this is just going to continue on, and it's going to actually grow, and it's not going to decrease.
Have you actually been able to get to go to the area there in by the Guadalupe River in Kerr County since all this happened, or anywhere near there, or just from you've seen from your perch, or was it seeing from your perch in South Texas, the Rio Grande Valley?
Yeah, so Texas Public Policy Foundation is actually going out there tomorrow. Our whole company is going to be going out there to assist. I also have former team members that are currently out there. They've been out there since day one, day hour, and that's going to be Doc Pete Chambers, former Green Beret. He's been out there. A good friend of mine also, Jason Jones. So
I know Jason Jones. I know Jason. He's a good friend of mine too. He's been on my show lots. He is awesome. Former head of counterintelligence and counterterrorism for the border and border operations. Former captain with DPS, and now Newsmax border correspondent. So yeah, so keep going with what you were saying. I know Jason very very well.
Yeah, so I've been coordinating with them in terms of intelligence mapping, everything else that I can away from there as I'm having to do other work items. But like I said,
have you heard from some of these? Have you heard from some of these guys who've been there yet? Talked to any of them?
Yeah, I talk to them on the hour, every day.
What are they telling you? What are they telling you they're seeing in person there at the river with the tragedy there in Central Texas in the Hill Country?
Really, unfortunately, because it's whole families died, and so the numbers are going to continue to climb because there's no way, like all the missing persons, that missing persons number is going to go up. Because they can't declare themselves missing if all of them are dead. And so right now they're working with canines. The mule team has shown up from the East Coast. All these efforts from, whether that's from Texas Special SAR, whether that's also Team Rubicon, the United Cajun Navy. I'm going to tell you what, the United Cajun Navy has always been at the forefront of disaster response. They were there when I was the National Guard liaison for Hurricane Harvey. They were there for Hurricane Helene. This nonprofit organization is leading the way in terms of how things should do without bureaucracy and red tape. They've brought out their chaplains And the chaplain is not only going out there to assist family units that have lost children, wives, husbands, and family members, but they're out there also to support law enforcement. When you see death and carnage constantly, this is also a time where suicide rates for law enforcement to dealing these issues. And so the United Cajun Navy has brought their chaplains as well to go and talk to the people there in Central Texas.
You know, Ammon, Blair, I'm looking at the latest from this morning, and you and I know that the numbers are changing always. But right now I see 119 dead at least, and that 176 are missing. My crude back of the napkin math, because, I mean, radio actually is brain surgery, but that's why I can't do math while I'm doing radio. But 295 dead is what it could end up being.
Yeah, minimum. I mean,
what are you hearing? What are you hearing? What do you think it could climb to? Just, I mean, from what you know.
Over 300. Yeah, it's going to probably be over 300. Like I said, as Doc Pete Chambers, his special operations crew out there, all the guys from the Texas National Guard, game wardens, all these search and rescue teams are finding full families that never got the word out. And so that number is probably going to climb, unfortunately.
Really quick, like 20 seconds or so, but my full take on this is the local authorities, the Kerr County Sheriff's Department, the Kerr County Judge, who's the EMA in charge, you know, he's the most powerful politician in the counties in Texas. You know that. I know that. The county judge.
Yep.
I blame them. The sheriff didn't even know about it until people were calling 911, alerting him and asking him for help at like between 3 and 4 in the morning, I think it was. And I also blame the private camps for where these went down. There was a camp 7 miles away from where Camp Mystic was, and one of their employees noticed the river rising and got everybody out like well before it happened. So to me, it's the camps and the local government there. Is that what you're seeing so far?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's why Governor Abbott yesterday declared the items for the special session.
Yes.
And 4 of those items are disaster response.
Yes.
And in fact, we assisted Representative Hopper on House Bill 4914 to reconstitute the Texas State Guard so things like this wouldn't happen. It was built off of the Florida model, where the Texas State Guard would be able to not just react, but act prior to the event actually happening, stage themselves so all this would not be. They would be the premier state defense force, just like what Florida is building now. We tried getting that passed in the House and also the 89th legislature. And so we're going to be working in this special session to try to get that done, and so that the disaster and the catastrophe that happened in Central Texas doesn't happen again.
Ammon Blair, I really appreciate talking to you today on Chicago's Morning Answer, Senior Fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Thank you very much. The column is entitled "The National Guard Has Defended Our Borders Before" in the Washington Examiner. I appreciate you very much for coming on.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Some wild and scary and serious stuff on there, but thank God for our Guard as well. All right, coming up next, we got something coming up at 8 o'clock. We're going to talk to Lauren Green, a congressional reporter at the Washington Examiner, on Congress breaking 4 records in just 6 months after arriving in Washington. That is coming up at 8, and much more coming up next. I'll give you the special session items. I'll tell you what Governor Greg Abbott put on in light of this horrible tragedy in Central Texas. This is Chris Crock and for Dan Proft, AM 560, The Answer.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
The following advertisement includes a celebrity impersonation.
The summer heat in Chicagoland is no joke. And if your old air conditioner is making funny noises, you may already know it's time for a new unit.
Look, your air conditioner, it's a disaster. People are telling me it's the worst ever.
Don't sweat it, literally. When it comes to cooling your home, Air Right Heating and Cooling does it the best.
And they love our country. Beautiful people.
Rebates are still available, financing is flexible, and at Air Right installations are smooth and professional with no